Hot day. Hot day. Switch on the fan.
What?
The next one? Just did 78.
Oh, you want to do that? You want to continue chanting? Yeah, okay. They asked me to.
Oh, is it really?
Where's the clock gone?
12:05.
Okay, when are we supposed to do the reading?
Whenever you want.
Oh, okay. I'll do it now because I'm... And Archie's at 1 again, is it? Or 1? Roughly.
Yeah.
Flexible, 1-ish.
Flexible.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shulakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Datati Swapadandikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sijuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Shahagana Lalita Shri Vishhakanvitang Chahi Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanda Namostute Thapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakarvatu Chakripashinda Vevaja Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I welcome everybody. Lovely to see people here. Most I recognise, some new, and also some that came from Green Street from last night. Was anybody in Green Street yesterday? Or during the day yourself? Yes, I remember.
And he stayed here.
You were here, yeah. Yes. There were quite a few last night, quite obviously packed in the temple and around the house. And they had outside, they had like a pandal in the back garden. People were taking prasad there, and so it was a very nice gathering with a lot of kirtan, and the arti was quite beautiful at midnight. Their lordships were wearing a beautiful yellow outfit. You might have seen that. Did you see that on the? I think anyone got it on the through the use of modern technology. You'd probably be able to see their beautiful appearance. And then, so today Nandotsav, traditionally the day, after the appearance of the Lord, they will have, Nanda Maharaj would celebrate the birth of his son by having a feast, and the people would come from all about to attend that. Also, simultaneously today, there's an appearance, right, of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad, who's very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet, and indistinguishable. If you say Krishna or Lord Krishna, and then Prabhupada immediately has to come to mind, because he's the channel through whom Krishna consciousness came to us in this life and in the Western world. And I'm sure everybody might have seen the film, the Hare Krishna film. Have you seen that? I mean, there's so many films of Prabhupada, his life, and his different clips are there. Some of them not very good quality because they were taken in the late 60s, early 70s, and this 8mm sort of movie camera, and also later on. But they were all amalgamated in one film, sort of major feature film called Hare Krishna, the Master, the Mission, and the Mantra. It was a couple of years ago. You might have seen that. That has some of the original clips amalgamated in, but also new material. And there is some actors, like for certain parts. For example, when it shows Srila Prabhupada as a little boy in Calcutta, they'll show this little boy walking into the temple room, like from the back, and sitting with his sister, worshipping the little deities of Radha and Krishna, which his father gave him. And so that too, very good, very nice. And so Krishna consciousness, as you know, is very, in one way, very simple and very direct and very uncomplicated. But on the other side is very sublime, very elevated and very difficult to understand. So you have these both simultaneously together. Simple in the sense that chant Hare Krishna and be happy. That was the slogan that was they used to say in ISKCON. And what could be more simple? Yet how many people would be doing it? There was a cartoon in the Daily Mail which Srila Prabhupada thought was extremely hilariously funny. And in the cartoon, in the first picture, there's a gentleman and a lady sitting on a bench in a park, and he's reading the newspaper. And this devotee comes up to them with a shaved head and everything. Second picture, there's a bubble, and he's saying to them, chant, 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 right? Preaching, that. And the third picture is them looking up at the devotee with the bubble saying, can't, can't, can't. He thought that was the funniest thing. So very simple. And this is not just, ourselves. It's not just ourselves, we would say, due to our own very gross material conditioning. Even Mahaprabhu himself, in his prayer, Shikshashtakam, in the second verse, you know it, Nam namakari bahuda nija sharva shaktis tatra pita niyamita smarane nakala etadrushi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi tudaiva midusham ihajaninana raga. He says, "O Lord, you're so merciful, you've given yourself with all your transcendental potencies in the form of this holy name. And you've made this process very easy. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting." Now, of course, we have to remember that means, as he says, nakala means no restrictions of time or place for chanting, sort of anywhere, anytime. But it doesn't mean chant anyhow you like, because there are 10 offences, and we do have to try to avoid them, and the 4 kinds of namabas, which is even more difficult, probably. So there are rules and regulations for chanting in that sense, but there's no restriction of where or when and so forth, unlike many processes in yoga and the Vedic processes, which require a lot of preparation, purification, and preliminary processes have to be there before one can even engage in the main practice. But chanting Hare Krishna, you just pick up your beads, or even without beads, and you can be chanting the holy name straight away and get connection. As I was saying last night, Srila Govinda Maharaj was saying it's a very extraordinary thing how the holy name can exist simultaneously in the highest plane of Goloka Vrindavan, and simultaneously in this very contaminated, bedeviled age of Kali in the material world. But as we were saying, the mercy must flow. The highest mercy must always flow to the lowest level. That is in its nature. If the highest mercy is there, then naturally it wants to respond to those who are the most needy, the most fallen. And you see, so thereby proving its efficacy, as mercy, or causeless mercy. So today we're remembering both, Lord Krishna and also Srila Prabhupada and his great work he did. We're all very beholden to him, and his gift, the gift of Krishna consciousness, as he called it, the matchless gift. That first temple in New York was, it was a gift shop that they took over, and it was called Matchless Gifts. So just imagine, it became the first temple in New York. Yeah. So would you?
Maharaj, why is it referred as a causeless mercy?
Yes, causeless because, as I said, mercy wants to go where it likes to go freely. In other words, without any cause. But then you can say, if the cause is as ourself, realizing ourselves as very fallen, then that is causing the mercy to flow. So how can it be causeless? Yes? It's like a paradox. Yeah. Also, so we can't. There's nothing really we can do from our side to induce Krishna to come, or the mercy of Krishna to come to us. Yet we have to do our part. Our effort or our attempt is absolutely necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient, however much it is, however strong it is in quality or in quantity. The mercy of the Lord must be there to connect both things together. Yes, like that. Both doors must be open for the current to pass. One side positive, one side negative. The giver and the receiver. Yeah.
And by us being conditioned, we recognize certain things in life as good, favorable, but in the ultimate sense, what is the mercy? Because my interpretation of word mercy could be different from what the Shastra explains. So what would the Shastra...
Okay, mercy means that there are some symptoms which are recognizable.
I'm translating.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
So Rupa Goswami, he goes into this very deeply in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And when he talks about Bhava Bhakti, it's the awakening of transcendental emotion and the symptoms of that, which he mentions. So they're recognizable things. For example, the person will be able to remain equipoised even in the midst of provocation, extreme provocation. Whereas before they'd become angry or very disturbed, very distressed. Yes, they can remain calm and centered. Also, they don't want to waste any time in any other things, frivolous things. Everything must be connected with Krishna or the service of Krishna, like this. And 9 symptoms he gives about Bhava Bhakti. So you can read about that in the. He's done a translation of Srila Prabhupada, Nectar of Devotion. And we can sort of like look at ourselves against that and see that, Shraddha, faith, is the beginning, of course. Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, we get some practical connection with devotees. Generally Bhajan Kriya, which literally means to do bhajan. Bhajan means worship. That is generally understood to mean initiation, or the substantial connection with the lineage, through initiation. Bhajan Kriya, anartha nibriti, dissipation, removal of faults, faults, obstacles, the kleshas, etc. Anartha nibriti shat. Then nishta, steadiness in devotion, ruchi, taste, and taste sort of develops into ashakti, which is firm attachment. There's sort of 2 aspects of it, lower and higher. And at the stage of a shakti, one's realization of one's relationship with Krishna begins to show itself. Then Bhava Bhakti, then Prema Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti in many stages, Sneha Rag, Man, anurag, bhav, mahabhav, yeah. So the thing, it can be judged by its results, by its effects. But then, on the other side, devotee will think, I'm very fallen, I don't have any of these things. He will naturally feel that. So, again, it's one of those paradoxes of Krishna consciousness. In the conversation between the 9 Yogendra saints, they're called Nava Yogendra, and Maharaj Nimi, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that famous verse is there, just as a person who's engaged in eating, with every bite, feels 3 things, 3 effects. Their hunger is dissipated, they have pleasure, the pleasure of eating, and their body is nourished. So similarly, through devotional service, those similar effects are there. One's hankering for sweetness is satiated. Of course, it's never satiated completely, but it's giving some substantial reciprocation for that. And one's spiritual body is fortified and awakened. And what was the third one? Yeah, like that. Nourishment, satiation, and so yeah, these are results. The results you can find, you can experience. But simultaneously with that, devotees thinking, I'm very fallen. You see, that realization will come simultaneously with that. It's extraordinary. So it's almost as if to say, the closer you get to the source, which is Krishna, then the more far away you feel yourself to be. Just as if you see the ocean from a far distance, you can understand it's a very vast thing. But still, because your sense of self is very strong there, so you're seeing yourself in relation to the ocean, and you're saying the ocean is, very big and very great, but I'm also something, isn't it? But as you go closer and closer to the ocean, it's getting vaster and vaster, and you're like diminishing. And when you come right up on the shore, they want to speak of entering into the ocean, right? Then actually at that point we don't believe that you merge into the ocean, the soul merges with the Absolute, the Mayavad concept. But there is a merging in terms of, as we were talking the other day about the organic whole, so realizing ourselves to be part and parcel of the organic whole, we naturally, smoothly and easily and harmoniously enter into our relationship in the organic whole, just like an ecosystem. So if you see a green bird flying to a green tree at a distance, you look at that and you say, oh, the bird has merged with the tree, where's it gone? Can't see the bird, only can see the tree. So the bird must have merged with the tree. You may think it, but actually if you go very close, or if you're inside and look inside the tree, you'll see the bird is there, doing many things. Having family, eating, playing, and so many birds and so many families also. So when we enter into the real life of Krishna consciousness, really, then it's very natural and sweet, and it's not an artificial thing. It's like, as Srila Maharaj would say, home comfort. We feel home comfort because everything is naturally provided there for us as we need. So just if you think of something for seva, for service, it's there. Or any materials you need was there automatically. Just as when God said, let there be light, there was light, let there be water, there was water, and so on. So similarly, the devotees of God, when they are that much in harmony with Him, something similar. For service, what is needed is automatically provided. And so you don't have to think about your own self-survival and your own existence. When you're in a foreign country, and there's people you don't know and different situations you're not familiar with, So you may take shelter in some hotel, and there you try to get some home comfort. Switch on the air conditioning, mini bar, nice, soft bed, and etc. Magazines and everything like that. But these are all artificial things, provided just to give some comfort. But when you're at home, you don't need anything like that. The temperature's perfectly correct. The food is everything marvelous. The association perfect, like this. So in that way, Christian consciousness is a very, very natural thing, very natural. Like it's a family life, as Srila Govind Maharaj used to say. We're not these like brahmachari, was it Grihastavana Prasanyas, as Mahaprabhu himself in his prayer said. And I'm not to caste, and I'm not a varna. Gopi bhatu kamalayo dasha dash anudas. I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of that Lord of the gopis, as our identification, real identification. So we have to get completely, really out of the material identification as much as possible and as quickly as possible, because at the time of death, it's all going to be taken away anyway. Everything, every last bit. Only what we will carry with us into the future is whatever seva or devotional service or substantial connection with the Lord is there by the mercy of the Lord and His devotee. That, otherwise everything else changes, all change. When the train comes in the station, they go, all change. Everybody has to go out. You can't stay on the train. Although you do see some people trying to hide on the train at the back, to the return journey. But that's surrender. It means a letting go, but it's surrender for something, not just to let go and enter into nirvishesh Brahma, but to enter into the serving life, as we say. Srila would say, die to live. This phrase is coming from the German philosopher Hegel, which is a translation, of course, from the German. May not be perfect or direct, but it's like die to live. Die as you are, your present ego identification. I am, male, female, brahmachari, sannyasi, householder, doctor, lawyer, priest, candlestick maker, but not butcher, of course, baker, etc. No, and so leave all that. First of all, I'm a spirit soul, but more than that, servant of Krishna. Because if you're just going to be realize yourself as soul atma, and there's no relationship there with the absolute, with the source, and ultimately that's a very dry thing. It's not satisfying.
But how to let go of the social role if you're constantly surrounded by circumstances which keep reminding you, keep provoking you to...
Well, see, that's exactly it. You just have to remember that you are playing a role. Like an actor on a stage is dressed up in a costume and he's playing a role, like, Shakespeare, and that person actually can be deeply immersed in that role, and it's as if he could forget his own real identity. But the thing is, the difference is, with the spiritual practice behind, then we will gradually, a detachment will come. So we can be playing our role and doing all the things, but at the same time not identifying with it. Yes, being in it, but not really of it. Yes, that's, as the Srimad Bhagavatam says, attachment to the Lord, to Krishna, automatically detachment from the mundane will occur simultaneously. So this, in our practice, we have to be integrated. We don't want to be, we don't want to take the Gnostic line, the kind of a Gnostic line where we're realizing ourselves as soul, as spirit, and therefore the body and matter and the material world altogether is something bad or evil or something we should get out of as quickly as possible. We should get out, but that's to go to Krishna, you see. So it's not bad in that sense. How can it be bad if it's Krishna's energy? Okay, it's his lower energy, his shadow potency, Chaya Shakti, the Maya Shakti, Prakriti. So it's the apara Prakriti, the lower energy, not the para Prakriti, the spiritual, but it is the energy of Krishna, but in a certain aspect, being transformed in a certain aspect. Like electricity is an energy, right? But electricity can run an oven which is very hot, and it can also run a fridge which is very cold. The same energy of Krishna is manifesting as spiritual or material. So the material energy itself, yes, it's not bad. It is a lower energy, and it's very captivating and very alluring. Maya, of course. So that's the danger, that's the thing. So to be aware of that, and but because of that, some souls who aren't very developed along the path, they develop a fanatical hatred of all things material, but that's not very balanced. Although sometimes in the text, in the Shastra, we see like run away from Maya and reject Maya, and this kind of thing. But these are given to make us aware of the situation, of the seriousness of our situation as being conditioned in the material world. When Gopakumar was leaving the material world, step by step, as he went up through the planetary systems from the earth, and went up to Indralok, and then Mahalok, and Janalok, and Tapalok, and then Satyalok, and finally he entered the covering of the universe itself, the Mool Prakriti, the entire aggregated material substance, which is a combination of all the material elements surrounding the material world, on the other side of which is the Brahmajyoti, the spiritual effulgence, light of Krishna, and beyond that Paravyom, then you have the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha, Shivalok first. Shivalok is a spiritual plane also, then Vaikuntha, Ayodhya and Vrindavan, etc. So when he entered the Prakriti, he met the goddess Prakriti herself. Just imagine, came to meet him, and they were talking, and she said, "Oh, please stay here with me." And he was very alluring. And it says, Sanatana Goswami says that he was very attracted because the color there was a deep bluish color, like Krishna, like his Krishna, like Gopal. And so he was attracted. He stayed for some time, but then again, his inner calling, his inner push came out. No, go on, go further. So that was by the power of the mantra which he'd been given by his guru, who it turns out, we find out at the end of the story, was actually Krishna, took the form of his guru and gave him that mantra, Gopal mantra, which he was chanting. And just as Narad, he plays his veena, and on that sound wave, he's travelling through the universe to many places, and outside the universe also. So Gopakumar, on the sound of his mantra, he was going up and up and up. And each stage he would stay for some time, feel very satisfied, think, oh, this must be the ultimate here. I've never seen or experienced anything like this before. And it would be like that for some time. And then after some time, he'd feel some dryness, some lack, some not having taste for it anymore. And then he wants to go on further. Then it would come strongly in his mind, oh, yes, Krishna, Gopal, and he will be continuing searching for him. That's a very good book, essentially, to read if you have the opportunity, Brihad Bhagavatamritam, because it will tell you all the different stages and levels of devotion, devotional service. At every plane of existence, where there is devotion to Krishna, it's manifesting in a certain way, in a certain level, and the devotees there who are practicing. So you have Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya Bhav, Madhurya Bhav, and the different subdivisions.
So faith is condensing into devotion, and there's like different devotion of a different caliber. So more condensed, more condensed, more condensed.
Yes, it's more. That's what it is. More condensed. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like as they say, you have sugar cane, and you take the juice, and then you by some process, it becomes to be like molasses, and then then brown sugar. It gets refined, and the sweetness increasing. So each stage has the qualities of the previous stage, but something plus. So in Shanta Rasa, the yogis, they meditate on Paramatma, Lord Narayan, and they have darshan of him within themselves. And in that darshan, they're completely satisfied. They're like, there's no savor as such. Only savor in a very, you could say, very sort of vague way, insofar as they're connected with the Lord through that process. But they're fully immersed in the beauty of the Lord, and they have absolute confidence and trust in the Lord's protection, and that's Shanta. And but then when that becomes more condensed, and there's a quality of service is added, becomes Dasya. But Dasya includes Shanta, but it's got that extra element. And then again, when the service becomes intensified and concentrated, another element comes in, which is confidentiality. So the distance between the devotee and the Lord, awe and reverence, that gap is closed. In Shakya Rasa, their friendship, there is an equality with Krishna. So then Krishna's friends are playing with him, and there's two levels of that. Gona Sakya, the lower one, like Pandavas, like in Hastinapur, the Pandavas are relating with Krishna, sitting with him, talking with him, eating, sleeping, everything. But still there is that element of respect inside, mixed with that, always. Although Arjuna said, in the Gita, 11th chapter, when he asked Krishna, I've heard about this Virat Roop, can you please show me that? And if you think I'm okay to see it, then please show me. And then I think that was a case definitely of, as we would say, biting off more than you can chew. Because when Krishna started to show him all these manifestations, he became bewildered, and he said, I can't understand, I don't know where, I want to do my business, but where? This way, that way, you're like everywhere, everything. And when he went, and to such an extent, finally he said, please stop it, take it away, I can't, and just show me as your original form, as Krishna, that I know that I'm familiar with. And he said, and please forgive me for that familiarity, which I was showing you with you. He's sitting on the same couch, eating, laughing, talking, joking, sometimes alone, sometimes with many others. Now I see who you are, O Lord of the universe, universal form. And Krishna said, yeah, let it be finished, and now see me as I am. So actually, in the Gita it says, where Krishna says, I'm giving you, it's translated as divine eyes to see my form, universal form. But Srila Maharaj explained, actually, Divya Darshan, the word is used, but that's more like supernatural eyes. Because actually the most divine eyes are seeing Krishna as a human-like person. Yeah. So that was actually a lower manifestation that he was seeing there. So so we were saying that, so that's Shakya, and then the higher level of Shakya Rasa then is complete equality with Krishna, to the extent of, wrestling with him, playing with him, sometimes insulting him. The cowherd boys say, "Oh, you think you're such a big man, just because you have a few more cows than us, but we know, we'll show you." And then complaining to Mother Yashoda, "Oh, you're not playing fairly, we'll tell your mother." And then Krishna becomes very afraid, because he's, fear personified, is afraid of Krishna. But Krishna is afraid of his mother, Yashoda. So when he would just stand before her like this, with tears, and his mascara is like coming down his face. And then she can't be angry with him anymore, of course. So she hugs him, and so the Sakya Rasa, and of course there are subdivisions in all these relationships. So sometimes it's, even in the intimate Sakya Rasa, some friends are a little bit younger than Krishna, so their friendship is free, but it's mixed with a little bit of subordination, like he's our elder brother and we're younger brother. Then there's the completely equal ones, then the ones a little bit older. So the little bit older ones, their friendship mixed with a little bit of protectiveness. Vatsalya means protectiveness over the subordinate, like to protect Krishna. And then there's the very intimate ones, they're called Priyanama Shakas, that they have some connection with Madhurya Rasa. They're going with Krishna on his escapades when he's going to be with the gopis and so on. So they go at that time and they're making some arrangements, and they're enhancing that rasa by sometimes supporting Radharani and the gopis against Krishna, or sometimes supporting Krishna against them, and like this. And when the Sakya becomes again more condensed and more intensified, it becomes the Vatsalya. Vatsalya Bhav is not just equality, it's superiority. So the Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and those older group, they're seeing Krishna as their son, their child, to protect him, to nurture him, and so on. Then again, the Vatsalya, again intensified, increased, becomes the Madhurya. And Madhurya means every aspect of the being, not, like in the service, and even the body itself, spiritual body, is completely connected with Krishna. This is Madhurya Bhav, and that has also levels within it. So then they say that's the Adi Rasa, the original Madhurya Rasa, the Mukhya Rasa, the root of all of the rasas. All the aspects are contained within that, isn't it? Like between lovers, you'll have Shanta Ras, you'll have, sometimes they're just chilled out, just being together, not doing anything or saying anything, just there, So much closeness, nothing needs to be said or done. Then you'll have service, serving each other. You'll have friendship. You'll have Vatsalya. One is like looking after the other in certain times, certain aspects. And then Madhurya itself, all is included there. So this is in the spiritual, and in the material world, that's reflected pervertedly or invertedly. So what is highest there is lowest here. That parakya, or free love, is not allowed here, right? And marriage is supposed to be the thing, the good thing, according to law. It's called svakya. And as it goes down, so the highest point in the material world is Shanta, Shanta Rasa. Then it begins there in the spiritual. Yes? So it's the opposite. And the material elements also are going like this way. So the 5 elements, ether includes all other previous, fire, water, earth and air. And then air, not ether, but it's including fire, water, earth. Then fire, water is coming from fire and earth. Then water, earth, and earth, only earth itself. So it's similar that way and this way. So and in the middle point, the neutral point, is not that side or not this side. That's the nirvishesh, the undifferentiated, non-specified area, which we are to avoid, like the plague. No, sorry.
We heard that there is a difference between residents.
Don't go there. You might get lost forever and ever.
Of the material world and the spiritual world, saying that
Yeah.
here there's souls, or jivas,
Oh, yeah.
someone who came out from Brahmajyoti. But there, the living entities are not made from quote unquote the same material. So the question is, what's the highest aspiration for a jiva soul? Where the evolution of consciousness progresses it to, and does it change constitutionally?
Yeah, yes and no. The soul remains as soul, but when the Svarup develops, then in the spiritual world, when the soul enters there, he's, like we were saying before, in the organic whole, he becomes then part of the Svarup Shakti of the Lord. Right? So at that point, there's no distinction. It's not like those who are Nitya Siddha, who are always there, have never left there, never fallen from there, and those who are the newcomers, so-called, who become liberated by sadhana practice and or by kripa, by mercy, which are both, because even sadhana siddha is going to have the element of mercy to reach its conclusion. Those who are entering from that side, from the lower side, there at that point then there's no distinction. It's nitya siddha, it's the eternal plane. So the eternal plane is the eternal plane. So there's no calculation. Like from here we would think, oh, do those eternal associates see the incoming ones, and they're a bit suspicious. Oh, they've come from the material world. Maybe they're going to not be, No, it's not like that. They're entering the eternal plane. That's the Nitya Lila, So
upon entering there, jiva stops being jiva.
Well, that I don't know. You'd have to ask someone specifically the theological particular aspect of that. To say whether the soul stops being a jiva at that point, the point is that the svarup, the eternal service form, when that's manifested, then that's the eternal form. So in that sense, it's not the jiva, it's not the jivatma, the condensed form like ourselves at present. So it's different, but it remains the same entity, the same being, of course, individualized part and parcel of. So then as we learned from Brahma Samhita, the soul then with Krishna in the spiritual form is different than here, of course. So as it said, Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti, the limbs of the senses and limbs of the soul in the spiritual form have a much more broader aspect. Whereas here, the bodily senses are very limited. The eye to seeing, the ear to hearing, the skin to touch. But there, it's not like that there. Just like Krishna, as Srila Prabhupada used to say, Krishna can, see with his ears and hear with his eyes. So also the soul there. So in order to serve Krishna, as I said before, whatever is necessary to be done or to happen will happen inconceivably, because it's a spiritual world. There's no limit. It's Vaikuntha. Srila Prabhupada translated Vaikuntha in his books. He usually says, without suffering, Vaikuntha. Srila Maharaj, he translated it as without limitation. But if you think about it, it's coming to the same thing, because suffering is because of limitation. If there's no limitation, then there can't be suffering. I mean, yeah, so these things are, of course, a little bit sort of more esoteric, but certainly we have Shraddha, we have faith that such things exist, and that, it's possible to go there and to be there. If the aspiration should be high, infinitely high for us. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to make too much progress, because we'll be constantly held back by doubt, suspicion. Because there, see, everything's free flowing. There is no doubt, no suspicion. That's the nature of this plane, mortal plane. Especially, of course, in the age of Kali. It's the age of, they usually say quarrel and hypocrisy. But Srila Maharaj, when he's describing it, he's saying doubt and suspicion. So everything has to be doubted, has to be tested. I don't believe it, etc., etc. So can you imagine if mother is giving a sweet, she's prepared the milk sweet, and she's giving the sweet to Krishna, and Krishna's like opening it, saying, "Oh, maybe something bad inside, It's just no such thing, But we're like that here. Everything is a testable matter, a plus minus accountable matter, So the idea that spiritually everything is one, a unified whole, organic whole, and yet infinitely variegated. This is the inconceivable nature of the spiritual world. That how there can be infinite variety, and yet that doesn't compromise the oneness. Because normally we think if something is one, it's one. It doesn't have parts or sections or divisions or expansions or anything. It's one, right? So the Mayavadis say, yeah, that's it. So wherever we see it, you're talking about pastimes, leelas, that's mundane, That can't be spiritual. But it's not the Vaishnava teaching. Because that's very limiting. That's like saying, well, God can't be one and many at the same time. But he can do anything or be anything. So yet there's still the oneness is maintained. Ramanuja, his philosophy is called Vaishishtadvaitavad, which means qualified oneness. It's oneness, but there's Vaishishta, variegatedness within that. The four Vaishnava Sampradayas, you may have heard of them, which we are one of them, from Madhvacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's beginning with Brahma, Lord Brahma, and it's coming down then through Madhvacharya to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to us. But there's three others. One begins with Lakshmi, that's Ramanuja Sampradaya. One begins with Shiva, Lord Shiva, the Rudra Sampradaya. And one begins with the four Kumaras, the four Kumara saints. They're called Chatushan, Sanat Kumar, Sanandana, Sanatan, and Sanaka. Come on, that's the other one. I always forget one of them. These four saints. And each of these sampradayas, they have a very prominent acharya by which the sampradaya is named. So our one would be the Madhvacharya sampradaya, as they call it. And there's Ramanuja from Lakshmi. Then you have Vishnu Swami from Shiva, Rudra Sampradaya, and Nimbaka, also called Nimbaditya. Nimbaka Swami, he was from the four Kumaras. Yeah. So each of these four, they're all Vaishnava, they all believe that the soul and Krishna are distinct entities, not homogeneously one in the Mayavadi sense. But the distinction and the oneness is explained a little bit differently in each of them. They have technical names, Vaishishtadvaita, Dvaitadvaita, etc. So they say Mahaprabhu, he he took elements from each of them and synthesized them. His philosophy is called Achinta Bhed Abhed, which means inconceivable, simultaneous oneness and difference between the soul and the Lord, and between the material world and the Lord. So there's an aspect of oneness and an aspect of difference simultaneously. How something can be distinct from something and one with it at the same time is obviously an inconceivable thing, an Achinta Tattva. So we just have to leave it at that. You can't try to conceive of the inconceivable by thinking about it or by analysing it. There's a certain limit to human thought, or possibly, that way. There's in a famous poem called Paradise Lost by John Milton. Have you heard of it? Paradise Lost. It's mentioned by Srila Maharaj just in his book Subjective Evolution, where he quotes what Satan said, better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. There's one quote from the book. It's a huge poem, like thousands of verses, but describing the fall of man, yes? And there's one part where Adam and Eve are in the garden, and Adam is speculating, looking up at the stars and thinking about so many things, and as we do, we look and say, oh, maybe there's life in other planets and other different things. And the Archangel Raphael is sent down by God, and they hastily have to convene a feast for him, which of course was all purely vegetarian at that time. So getting fruits and roots and nice things and making feast. And he's saying, he's telling to Adam, no, don't. There's a limit to human thought, because you get to a certain point, a certain barrier, and you really can't go beyond that. Then that is, in a sense, like a blasphemy against God, to try to push into the secrets of God, which only the Lord can know. So that's why nowadays, the scientific movement and discoveries, that's fine. But within the context of the understanding that everything is created and controlled and owned by the Lord, then do your science. But not that we can be gods, by knowing everything. So because in one sense everything is inconceivable. The famous poet William Blake, you've heard of him? Okay, he was a poet, he was also an artist and also like a mystic. And he, in his famous poem, he wrote, to see a world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity to hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. See, so everything is actually infinite, even a grain of sand. You can analyze it, and you can put labels on this on the molecular structure. It's just labels, but what it is, you can't say. Something inconceivable, energy. Like there's a song actually, it says, a tear in the hand of a Western man, he'll talk about salt, carbon and water, but a tear in the eye of an Oriental man, he'll talk about love, the love of, it actually says the love of a man for a woman, but it could be also infinite love. Same thing, right? It's a tear. What does it mean? One way, it's, yes, salt, carbon, water, but much, much more than that. So anything, any element, anything we look at, we think about, is not just our own idea, conception of it. It's something infinitely more, because it's created by the infinite. A part of the infinite is also infinite in that sense. Yes? So unfortunately our conditioned mind, it thinks very linearly and conceptually about things. And But the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of things is much more than that. Particularly in Kali Yuga, the thinking process is very much highly reduced, even in previous ages, previous civilizations. Our faculties and facilities have been very decimated, by the fallen condition over millennia, and so. But that. But we don't have to be limited by that because Atma and Paramatma are so close within our own body. And one time Srila Govinda Maharaj said, the Atma and the Paramatma are so close, if the Atma will have direct connection with Paramatma, then his aspect would be also infinite. It's not infinite in the sense of as a God, but infinite possibilities. Again, that's Vaikuntha, isn't it? The world of non-limitation, suffering. So, where we're given these teachings by our Guru Varga, it's not they've given us something like, oh, here, you take this, and that's it. No, they've given us something. Now, there's that parable in the Gospels of the talents. You might know it. And the man had different workers, and he gave a talent is actually a coinage in ancient Israel, and he gave 10 talents to one, 5 talents to the second, and 1 talent to the third. And then the master went away to a distant place, and when he came back, he called them to account. And they came before him, and the one who had been given 10 talents, he made 10 talents more, and the one who had 5 talents, he made 5 more. But the one who had only 2 talents, he buried it in the ground. He didn't do anything with it, and he was banished or sent to prison or whatever. So, so what we've been given is a potential, a seed. So we have to use that and cultivate that. That's us, That's not. No one's going to do that for us. It's like now. Oh, my Gurudev, he gave me something. That's it. Then I just shut everything down, and that's it. No, he's given us something to develop ourselves, to grow to Krishna consciousness. Yeah, do you follow? Yeah. Otherwise, then we just get stuck in the same tribalism, which is quite. It's only very low second chakra level, like my group, my group, my religion, my society, and then I have to protect myself from all the others, and in order to bolster my sort of stability in this one, I have to put the other one down, and like this. It's not very developed level. So like that. So, Krishna consciousness or Vaishnavism is including everything, all the teachings of the world, all possible theologies, but also something more, transcending them. Like in the mountain, each elevation, 100 feet, 200, 500, 700, so each elevation is from that elevation, everything below that is included, but not what's above that. So at 500 feet, you can see what's at 200 feet, 100 feet, but you can't see what's at 700 feet, right? And at 700 feet, you can see what's at 500, 200, but you can't see what's at 900 feet. So the top is supposed to be, if at the top, is supposed to have complete vision of everything, which is supposed to Krishna consciousness, right? So every conception is within that. Christian, Islamic, Judaic, etc. There's nothing in any of these teachings that's not in Vaishnavism, but they're partial, partial. Do you know the story of the poem of the 6 men of Hindustan and the elephant by John Saxon? It's brilliant. It was a poem written in 1800s in India, colonial India. You know, he says there were 6 men of Hindustan to philosophy much inclined. I forget the whole poem, but basically they put an elephant and they blindfolded these 6 men, and they asked, "Tell us what is an elephant." So the first one, he went and he got the side of the elephant. He said, "It's like a wall." And the second one, he felt the leg, and he said, "It's like a tree trunk." So when he got the tail, he said, "It's like a rope." So all of them were not wrong, but none of them were completely right. You see, partial knowledge. But if you have Krishna, then you have everything, right? Supposedly. But that would be. At the same time, the soul is only given the revelation that it's ready for. It can't get more than that. It's too overwhelming, and it can't be accommodated. So it's like if a small child is taking milk, breast milk, then after 6 months you give the grains, and eventually when he's a fully matured person could eat a feast, 100 preparations. If you try to give 100 preparations to the small baby, it's nothing going to happen. So like that. So these are different levels of revelation which are given to human beings by those they're representatives of God, all of them. But as Bhaktivedanta says in his Sharanagati, generally we see three goals which they're showing. Some giving the prospect of increased material elevation to higher planes, increased material possibilities, like by worshipping demigods, for example. You get so many things. And the second is go to Nirvishesha Brahma, impersonal dissolution in the neutral zone, non-differentiated zone, right? And he says generally the sadhus and saints, they're generally giving one of these. He says, but I do see them as being sent by you, Krishna, to help the people in certain levels. But for me, they're very dangerous. I offer my respects to them as your representatives in some way, but I offer those respects from a distance. But the dust of the lotus feet of your devotee, that is my wealth and my food and my only aspiration. So devotion, you have karma, jnana, yoga and bhakti, like in the Bhagavad Gita. So the culmination is bhakti and all parts are good and all are necessary, helpful, healthy. But if you stop in a certain level and say this is it, this is the totality, then that's not the idea. You're supposed to go on. That's why the Gita shows that through the progression. In the 6th chapter, Krishna says, the yogi is better than the mental speculator, the empiricist, who's analysing everything, trying to find what is the source, neti. And he's better than the performer of penances and austerities. But the best of all yogis is my devotee, yogi mam api sarvesham mad ketena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajateyo mam. He's worshipping me with faith and with their heart's devotion. Shraddhavan bhajateyo mam same yukta tato mata. This is my final opinion. So if we believe it, we're saying, okay, if Krishna has the final word, we accept that. So in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives a test. And one of the most important things is, it says, what are the 3 most important, actually it gives 10 things. But the first three are the most important, and the first of those is, it says agama. Agama means, literally agama means book or scripture, but it means what teaching are you accepting on your head as your ideal, as your thing. What is it? Is it, the secret, or Eckhart Tolle, or some other conception, or is it conception of Krishna consciousness? So that will be super important. That will guide your life. It will guide your life. And can't remember the other ones, but so anyway, I'm finished now. Pardon?
Srila Vyasadeva with his life very clearly showed how, he went through different conceptions and then finally came to a final ultimate conclusion.
Yes.
Srila Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Kind of lucky that we don't have to go through all this forest of knowledge.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that even he, great as he was, reached that wall that he couldn't go any further. He couldn't understand, there's something missing here. I've compiled all the Vedas, but something not right, something I've missed or something and it was his guru Narad had to tell him that. Had to say that. No, this you haven't given the essence of the rasa tattva. Yeah? What is the actual taste of the relationship of the soul and the Lord, with Krishna consciousness, and you have to do one final writing to show that, to bring that out. And he gave him 4 shlokas to meditate on, and then he did that. Madhusudana Maharaj was talking about this last night, you might have seen in Green Street. But so in other words, so the final help that he needed came from his guru, came from the upper. Although he is considered an incarnation of the Lord himself, Vedavyas, right? The literary incarnation of God. So sometimes God has to come and help himself, right?
What is Veda in general? Because it's a very broad, archive of knowledge, but we heard that there's a number of lines of thought.
Yes. It's like a tree. It's described that Om is the seed, and Om, Gayatri, Ved, Vedanta, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Om is the seed, and then that sprouts in the form of Gayatri, becomes the tree, the Veda. It's like 4 branches, and then the flowers coming out, this Vedanta, is the essence of the Vedas. But the flower stage is there's beauty in terms of intellectual purity, but no taste. Taste, you have to have the fruit, right? The fruit comes out from the flower, and that is Galitam Phalam, the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, Srimad Bhagavatam, about Krishna consciousness. That's why the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the topmost scripture, Amala, Purana, and whatever you want to describe, yeah. So that's it, okay. Generally, we just, when they're ready, they do the thing.
Are we ready for everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have the Pushpanjali, we offer
Oh,
some
yes.
flowers.
Okay.
Some,
We do that now first.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can do
okay.
that now. Yeah.
And singing Guru.
Yeah.
Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Jai Sri Gurudev ki Jai, and the Mahotsavam ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Sri Prabhupada ki Jai.